Okay, hello everyone. Through the power of democracy via Facebook polls, you guys decided that the next video that I'm going to be recording and uploading is how to make a great first impression. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Madison. I used to show in 4-H and AQHA shows when I was a youth and still had a horse. I am currently horseless. However, I would like to share whatever information I can with current 4-H and open show exhibitors to try and just provide more information on the pleasure and performance events. So for today, how do you make a great first impression and why does it matter? Mini disclaimer, this presentation is old. I spent about an hour kind of updating it and changing some things. But if I kind of go on a mini tangent, don't worry about it. So, what does the judge actually look at? So oftentimes, and this is primarily the horsemanship, equitation, and showmanship, and maybe a little bit of the trail, where the judge actually only has like 10 to 20 seconds when you first come up to that cone in between your patterns to actually like look at you and your horse. Because especially in those pattern events, the judge is going to be looking at how you're doing everything and scoring you. So I don't want to say multitasking, but essentially a judge is multitasking while they're watching you, recording, or telling their ring steward how to score you. So they really don't have that much time, and in all honesty, those first few moments are extremely important because how you present yourself can affect the way in which people see you. And this doesn't just count for showing. Anyone that has ever had a job interview in person ever will tell you that you need to dress for success. And I think showing is essentially you and your horse going for a job interview, and the judge is the person deciding, if you get the job, which maybe is a weird way to look at it, but that's how I think of it. So you always want to do things that make you look, first off, you need to be clean. Second is being kind of crisp and polished. And lastly is just looking professional. And also, no amount of money or sparkles or glitter or hairspray or anything is going to make up for the time that you do or don't spend working with your horse. Always invest the most money in yourself and your horse as far as education, learning, and actually becoming a better horseman or horsewoman. So, clean. What does that truly mean? So, first off, you need to make sure that your horse is washed, and if you choose to, band or braid your horse's mane, that they lay flat, they're all even, they look nice. Your horse's ear, fetlocks, so their legs, muzzle, and face all should be clipped. I know some people, I think overseas and in Europe and stuff, they don't allow clipping of whiskers on the horse's face, but here in the US, we clip the horse their face. So the tail should be combed out, it should be clean, there shouldn't be like hay or wood shavings or anything in it. If you have a tail extension, it should be put in correctly. If you want me to make a video on how to put in a tail extension, I can probably find a horse that someone would be willing to let me demonstrate that in, so comment or do something to let me know, but that is optional. The hooves should be trimmed and painted and clean. So typically, let's use the 4-H state show for example. I would have my horse's feet shod and trimmed about 2 to 3 weeks out before the show, so that way when they get to the show, just in case it's a little bit short, they're not going to be sore at all, and there's some growth on their hoof, but they're not long. They're not going to be tripping over their feet. You know, you need to get your horse on a schedule with keeping their feet trimmed. Your horse's hooves can either be painted black or cleared. Some breeds, Appaloosas for example, you paint them clear. They should just be the same color on all feet. Tack, your bridles and saddle needs to be cleaned. When I was routinely going to shows, would clean everything at least once a month when I was going 2 or 3 times every weekend. But for sure, you should do it before for 4-H, your county show, and your state show. And with checking things are clean, also making sure that everything is in good working shape. You know, horses sometimes are a little rough on things. If they chew on your reins, make sure those are in good shape. Your rein ties, always check those. Check the screws in your bridles, make sure those are tight, you know. Blankets and saddle pads are washed and cleaned. I know I've been guilty from time to time forgetting to bring it into the house and washing my English pad, but try to do that as much as you can, just for your own horse's comfort, so you're not like putting a really sweaty, stiff pad on them. Make sure you clean that, and also make sure everything fits correctly. I know for a lot of people going out, and if your horse's body muscle changes throughout the summer, you really can't just go out and buy a brand new saddle for, oh no, look, now they have a ton of muscle. They're not as narrow as they used to be, or vice versa. They're not chubby, so now they are narrower. Going out and buying a whole new saddle isn't really feasible, but you should try, and if you are buying a new saddle, or used one, but new to you, make sure it fits your horse correctly. And if you have multiple horses, you know, take that into account. If you have something really wide and something really narrow, you might have to invest in two. And also for yourself, making sure all your clothes are clean. Your hat and boots need to be cleaned. Your boots, you should wipe them off before you go in. And your hair needs to be contained. If you have long hair, it either needs to be in a bun or a ponytail. If it's in the Western Pleasure or Trail class, you can have a ponytail. Everything else needs to be in a bun and or under your cap or hat. Yeah, everything needs to be clean. So, since I talked about banding, I know a lot of people, when I am like, oh, don't forget to trim your horse's mane. So typically for the pleasure classes, the top left gray is what you'll do, is you'll band them and then trim it to about, I don't know, about a hand width laying flat under the brand. It's probably like 5 inches long, I guess, is about how long they would normally be. And the whole reason of doing this is because it makes the, makes the horse's neck look longer and flatter, which especially for like the hunter under saddle and the Western Pleasure are kind of your goal. You want their neck to look nice and flat and long and everything. But if you are opposed to cutting your horse's mane, I know a lot of people that are, you can either do something for the Western, like this horse on the right, the bay, and you can band the mane, but just leave it long. You can do multiple rows of bands. I wouldn't do more than 2, just knowing how much work it is, but you can do that. I've done this myself. And then this gray in the bottom left, you can plait the mane, and then rather than cutting it and then folding it under, you pull the excess tail up through the middle. So like if your braid is a long braid, you would fold and pull it up underneath. I would band this just to keep it more secure, and then use that excess tail in the next braid. So you can see how they like pulled this piece over, they braided it, and then that tail goes into this braid, and then that tail into that one, and then it just continues. Or if you're doing the English, you can do just like a running braid. Practice this stuff because you don't want it to be the first time when you get to a show you're trying to do this. But those are options if you don't want to cut their mane. I personally really like just the cleanness of the top left, but crisp and fit. So your hat and helmet should stay on and not wiggle. This is before hairspray and pins. Remember, for 4-H shows, your hat or your helmet needs to securely stay on your head. You should have about 2 fingers under your chin, between your chin and the strap. You don't want more than that, so that way it doesn't possibly slide off if something happens. And also, I like to, when I'm looking for a new helmet, however I'm going to have my hair is how I'm going to do it when I'm looking for a helmet. And then I'm going to put the helmet on my head, not buckle it, and then just gently shake my head side to side and up and down like I'm nodding yes and no. And if the helmet falls off, that is too big. If it doesn't securely sit on or if it doesn't go actually on my head, then it's too small. So always check your helmets. If you fall with a helmet, you should replace it because the helmet likely is damaged from the impact of you falling. But anyway, pants hit the top of the heel of your boot and are long enough to cover your boots when running. I don't know if I have a picture, but I'm going to do my best to explain. So when you are standing tall but still relaxed, the hem, so the bottom of your showmanship pants, should hit the top part of the heel of your boot. So if you're looking at someone from the back, the pants should end where the heel begins. That is because if it is shorter than that, when you start running, a lot of times Western boots are like two tones. So like the lower part will be black or brown, and then like the shaft of the boot will be like a different color. And you don't want that other color to show. I know some people dye their boots. I had dyed boots, but still you want your pants to be long enough that you don't have that it like looking really short, nor do you want it super long. And again, let me know if you want to know more about how showmanship pants should fit. Jacket or shirts, you want to have the sleeves be long enough. When you bend your arm like you would in showmanship and horsemanship, and well, basically anytime, anytime really, the cuff should hit the like back of your thumb bone. So like you have your thumb, and then if you have your thumb on top, like you're doing a thumbs up, there's like a point near your wrist that kind of like pops, well not pops out, but like there's a bone at the back of your thumb. Your cuff should sit there. So that way when you're bending your arms and moving things, you're not going to be showing like half your arm. I have really long arms, so I know how hard it can be. Showmanship jacket should be long enough that, so typically in the showmanship, you have your jacket untucked, in the Western Pleasure too, maybe the trail. Pretty much any other time you have a shirt tucked in. And again, fit changes depending on what exactly style you're going for, if it's a gentleman or a lady. But either way, your horse, saddle should fit. That is super important for your horse's comfort. And your stirrup should be the correct length. I do talk about that in the next couple slides. Your saddle needs to be in the correct place, making sure it's not too far forward on their shoulders or too far back. Saddle pad should have room for the numbers on both sides. So you want to make sure that whatever saddle pad you're using, there's somewhere for you to pin your numbers to. For 4-H in Minnesota, it is required for you to have numbers on both sides of your pad so the judge can see your number at all times. English pads for the hunt seat have to be white and like the fluffy like wool almost kind of look. Halter and bridle need to be the correct size. You don't want them to be really sloppy. I believe I have a video in the future that's going to be talking about showmanship halter fit. And also, and I think this is one that like, I don't want to say it's forgotten, but it's something that we kind of forget to tell people that are just starting, is to check that your horse's bit is the right width for their mouth. Because if it's too narrow, especially if you're using like a curb bit or something, it can be really uncomfortable and like pinch your horse's cheeks just constantly, which is obviously not fun. I don't know if anyone listening has had, you know, when you go to the dentist and well, okay, I had braces, so you know how when they like shove the goo to like get an imprint to your teeth, and then they're like, oh, don't forget to like keep your mouth closed, or whenever when they're doing x-rays and like pinches your cheek and you're like, oh my god. Like you don't want to do that to your horse, so make sure whatever bit you have is the correct size. Also, do not laminate your number, because then when the light hits it, especially indoor lighting, I find is so much worse. It will reflect and the judge can't read your number. So instead, put a couple layers of duct tape on the back side of your number and then you can use pins in that, and since the duct tape is there, it's thicker and it's sturdier and it lasts longer. Hats, hooray! Okay, so you're probably like, what is this geometry down here? Obviously everyone has their own personal preference. I will say if you are getting your hat shaped soon, which you all should, is take a picture of the slide and ask them for the one up here that's circled in green, or the one that the lady has on. It's called the quarter horse crease. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what it's called. This is a shape that a lot of people are going with in the shows now. It's typically signified by having a very flat brim in the front and then tapering pretty sharply up and having pretty square, well, not square, but like a pretty sharp turn. They're not really rounded like the, especially the cattleman one. And again, that's personal preference more than anything. Quick tip, if you're buying yourself a new hat, especially if it's for a younger kid and you're still growing, buy a little bit bigger, and then you can stuff the, there's like that band around the top that's like leather that's folded. You can stuff that with folded Kleenexes to kind of fit the head a little bit better until you get older. Obviously, don't go like way different in size, but you know, you can do that. And also for hats, felt hats in particular are what you pay for is what you get, I feel, most of the time. You want to make sure that you buy a hat that has a high number of X's, because a X indicates the number of fibers in the hat. So hats are typically made with, I think it's beaver hair. And so the hat for the felt hats, the thicker or the bigger the number, the thicker the hat is, and the better that it holds its shape, and that means you won't have to get it shaped as often. So, the more you know. Stirrup length. We're gonna talk about English first. So, we're talking about English first because a lot of people don't understand how the sizing and stirrup length is determined for English saddles. So first and foremost, your knee roll doesn't really say where you should put your leg. It does, but at the same time it doesn't. So for English saddles, the seat size is not determined by your size. So like, I'll use myself for an example. I am 5'8". So the distance from my knee to my hip bone, so my thigh, that length is what is used to determine the size of my English saddle seat, based off of, you know, where you have to sit in relation to the front of your knee roll. So if someone who is 5'2", 5'3", but is the same, you know, clothing size as me, we would still need a different English saddle based off of our heights. So I would highly recommend, if you're looking for an English saddle, going to someone that has experience or going to an actual English specific store. Anyway, stirrups. That is what we were talking about. So you don't want your stirrup length to be so short that you are kind of like forced to have your leg forward and your seat back. You should always have, whether it's English or Western, a straight line from your ear, shoulder, hip, and heel down. For the English, you can be leaning forward ever so slightly, but it shouldn't be like really obvious. When you're relaxed, the iron should hit the top of your ankle. That can be adjusted slightly. So when I say relaxed, if you take your foot out of the iron, stirrup iron, and just have your leg hang loosely, the stirrup should hit like the top of your ankle bone. Seat and the flap, you want to make sure it's correct for your discipline. I don't think there's a rule about using a dressage saddle in 4-H, but I would recommend not using one because you have to post for the English classes for the equitation and stuff. And while I haven't ridden in a dressage saddle, I know people that do and they can post. It's not very comfortable. Um, also make sure the saddle is even from front to back. Oh, right. Okay, so if you have a horse that maybe they're older or don't have a lot of back muscle and their back kind of swoops down. They have like a sway back. So in those cases, you are going to need to get a pad riser because your English saddle should be level from the front of it to the back. Sometimes it's slightly different. Some saddles, they have a taller back. But in general, the saddle should be balanced. And again, if you go with someone that has experience with English saddles and they really understand saddle fit, they'll be able to tell you. So on the left, the saddle's way too small. You can see the saddle ends probably here, but the rider's basically taking up every space that is available to them on the saddle. So they should look at saving up and trying to get a saddle that fits them better. The gal in the middle looks really good. She's kind of going away from us a little bit, but overall the saddle's pretty well fit for her, and her stirrups are a good length. On the right, her stirrups are way too long. To me, it almost looks like she's like, I don't want to say slouching because her upper body is tall, but like kind of like stretching and throwing her legs out in front of her and kind of almost bracing and holding herself. Here we have some more examples. So on the left, and so I picked all these pictures for reasons too. So on the left, the young lady has really good contact with the reins, and like her elbow to the horse's bit is a straight line, which is good. I think her stirrups look a little bit long for her, but also she looks a little bit on the shorter side and is riding what I would assume is a pretty darn big horse. So if the stirrups are longer so she can ride better, and if the horse needs a lot of leg, that could be why. But overall, I think her stirrups look a little bit long because she doesn't really look like she has any more of her leg to push down into her heel. The gal on the right, overall, pretty good. I would say that she's leaning forward a little bit more than I would like. Looks a little bit more like someone preparing to come up to a fence rather than someone who is on a flat class for the English pleasure equitation. The gal in the middle on the app looks really nice. Elbow could be back a little bit. Her hands could be up a little bit. And it looks like her fingers are open. But anyway, sorry. Overall, she does look really, really nice. She's leaning forward slightly, but not as much as the gal on the top right. And she does have her heel down. The other two ladies do not. So you should always have your heel down. Horsemanship stirrup length. So on the right is a drawing. That's from AQHA, and I also believe the video is from the other pictures from Horse and Rider. So drawing to the right shows good horsemanship, Western pleasure riding position. You want to be nice and tall, your shoulder, hip, and heel all in line. And for the below, the left below, so the left bottom corner, she looks like she is forcing her heel down, and because of that, she is throwing her foot forward ahead of her. It's not perfect, but a lot of times if you're looking at the rider from the side, their toe should be even with the cinch or slightly back off of the cinch. And on the right, looks much, much better. There's still a bend in her knee, but it's not like drastic, and she's not forcing her heel down either. For the stirrup, when you have your leg out and just hanging, it should hit your ankle. So English, the top of your ankle bone. Western, it hits at your ankle. Oh no. So for professional, you want to make sure that your entire outfit complements your horse and is appropriate for your age and what you're showing. First off, if you want to wear a really bright color, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But I think again, coming back to the dress for success thing, I think if you're Cloverbud in 3 through 5, wear whatever color you want. Have fun. 6 through 9, I would say start to kind of think of a color that complements you and your horse a little bit more. Maybe don't do like any bright neon colors, but you can still do, maybe if you have a bay horse, you can do like a kind of plum purple. That would look nice. Or a red shirt and black chaps, or, 9 plus, you kind of want to look a little bit more professional even still, so darker colors typically, and also not as many colors also. For cuffs are out. They have been for quite a while now, so avoid a shirt with a cuff. If you do have a shirt with cuffs on it, you can remove those. That's an option. Do some little DIY stuff. Make sure your hair is not sloppy and that it's in a nice bun or ponytail that's kind of slicked down. Lots of hairspray, lots of bobby pins, hairnet, whole 9 yards. Bling is not everything. I'm actually super excited, and I think I have a photo on the next couple of slides. Solid zip up and button up shirts are like the thing right now. So super excited about that because it's cheaper. And also then you can have more color options, I think. And it's not as distracting. There's nothing blingy to like get in the way and break or rub off or whatnot. You can use a scarf if you want. For ladies, you tuck the tails of the scarf in and like tie it twice. For guys, you can have the tails out. Vests are also in, and they're great for all-day shows. You can pair it with a solid shirt, and then you have two outfits, really. English shirts, sometimes, if you want. I think the easiest thing to always do is just get a white shirt or a very light color, and if you want color, do something with the collar. But really, you can't go wrong with a white shirt and a black or navy blazer. So, again, English attire. You need to have a blazer jacket. For ladies, it needs to have 2 vents in the back. For men, you can do 1. Black is most traditional. Navy's okay. You can do like a dark green if you really want. I think I've seen some people with chocolate brown, but like black is the safest bet. You want like a beige tan kind of breeches, black boots, black helmet. If you have another color helmet, that's okay, but typically you want to do black, and then a light colored undershirt. For Western attire, you want a color that complements your horse, of course. A scarf I already mentioned. Chaps, if you are going to wear chaps, they're not required by any means. You want them to sit up and come up to your waist, not just over your hips. You want them to come basically all the way to your waist. And as far as length, you want it to overhang past the bottom of your boot only 1, maybe 2 inches, because if they're longer than that and you're riding, it'll flop around. And you don't want that because then it makes it look like your foot is moving more than it really is. Okay, things to avoid. First off, don't be unprepared. Know the rules and expectations of your class before you go into it. If you have a pattern, read it and practice a couple times. Don't be late. Be ready at the cone. And going first shows confidence. Sometimes I would rather go first because then I don't see other people possibly do things incorrectly before I go, and then I start second guessing myself. So sometimes going first is a good thing. Try to make sure that all of your attire again fits well, and make sure that it suits you for the class that you're in, the level of show that you're at, and your size. Stand out as much as you want the judge to notice you. So if you have a bay horse, you're going to want to probably try and stand out because bay and chestnut horses are very, very common. If you have really, really loud, like Appaloosa or paint, or a really unique colored horse that's maybe more of a buckskin or a palomino or something, there's probably not as many of those. So your horse is already going to stand out more. So you maybe don't need to wear as loud of a color as someone on a bay or chestnut to kind of catch the judge's eye. English is traditional. Don't be blingy. Don't try and put rhinestones on things. That's for the Western, not the English. Do not school your horse when you're in the show pen during a class. Make sure you're respectful of the exhibitors around you. If something goes wrong, you can go into the center of the pen. Just don't interrupt anyone else's ride, even if you're having a bad one. Always do a last minute check, making sure everything is in good shape. You're not leaving any vet wrap holding your horse's tail extension, like keeping their tail together. Don't leave, mud on your boots. Remember to untuck your pants when you go in for the showmanship, etc., etc. Okay, and then for the pictures in the top right, where to put your showmanship number is a really common question for me. So you want it to be kind of in between your shoulder blades and on more so your upper back, kind of between your shoulders. You don't want it on your lower back because it just doesn't look as nice. And your hair should be in a bun anyway, so it's not like your hair is going to cover it. And then the bottom two, sometimes I think less is more, because when you think about it, especially for the Western pleasure, the judge isn't that close to you. And even in the horsemanship and the trail, the judge isn't going to come right up to you. They're not going to see all the intricate details. So, just keep that in mind. And that's everything, as I am slowly losing my voice for rambling for 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to them. So thank you for watching. I have other videos on this channel, mostly talking about, at the moment, how to read and understand patterns. I'm going to be doing an abbreviated version of those for the next video. So thank you for watching.